Hey, hey, legal pagers. Welcome to this episode of the Legal Page podcast. Today is all about makeup artistry legalities, what you need to know to be legally legit as a makeup artist in the wedding and event industry, and how the industry has really evolved and changed since the coronavirus hit. I am so excited to have makeup artist Erin Nay join us today for this episode. Erin is a valued member of the TLP community on Facebook, and she always has the best responses and is always there to be your biggest comrade and colleague in the industry. She helps so many legal pagers that have legal questions and answers them to the best of her abilities. And I could not wait to ask Erin to be on the Legal Page podcast. So for a more formal introduction, Erin is a makeup artist and licensed esthetician and has been for the past 15 years. She lives in Northeast Indiana and specializes in bridal beauty makeup. She is the owner and solo artist of Erin Nay Makeup Artistry and provides 100% on-site makeup services. So she doesn't set up shop anywhere. She comes to you. And Erin is a wealth of information for all things makeup artistry. We do talk about some legal sticky situations that you want to try to avoid in this episode. So it's one that all you makeup artists are not going to want to miss. Let's do this. You're listening to the Legal Page podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am really excited to have my friend Erin here to talk all about legal situations as a makeup artist in the wedding and event industry. Erin, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You guys, Erin is a phenomenal presence in the Legal Page community on Facebook, and she's always there to be your best comrade and answer questions in the group. And I couldn't wait to just jump on and talk to Erin about, her experience in the wedding and event world, and particularly in the makeup artistry world, and how she kind of has gone about this past year. A lot of our episodes that we're having lately on the podcast involve me kind of talking with people on how they change business practices and how they're working with clients during the pandemic. So I think this is a good time for us all to kind of learn and listen in and hopefully take some new bits and pieces on what they suggest that you do. But Erin, I know you decently well, and I would love for you to introduce yourself to all the legal pagers listening.
My name is Erin Nay, and I am a makeup artist and licensed esthetician here in Northeast Indiana. I've been doing makeup for 15 years now, and I specialize in bridal makeup artistry. I used to do a lot of prom makeup and headshots and mostly special occasion makeup, but the majority of my work is specializing in bridal makeup. I am 100% mobile, so I don't have a studio or work in a salon here in Indiana. I provide all my services strictly on site. So I go to homes or hotels or venues and provide all my services on site, mostly in Northeast Indiana and all over the area, and just work on brides and bridal parties and am there for my clients wherever they need me to go.
I love it. You seriously provide one of the most valuable resources for weddings and events. I've told people previously, I'm like, literally weddings and events would be nothing without hair and makeup artists, because I've obviously done tons of photography at weddings, and there's been just mishaps that have occurred with just hair and makeup, and people, that's like the start of their day. And so you want to just have the best professionals there possible. And I know that you are one of those that kind of make or break the beginning of the day and how everyone's feeling. So, Erin, can you kind of give me just your take? I would love just kind of a candid take on how COVID has kind of impacted the makeup industry, primarily for weddings and events, and when you're in close contact with people. And just like, give me the lowdown on where you were at last March, how things were quickly changing with, reschedulings and cancellations until now, like how things have changed up until now, and then what you're, kind of being aware of now as the pandemic still is around. Obviously, it's gotten under control a little bit more here in the US, but it's something that we all face every day in the wedding and event industry.
Well, the hardest part is with doing makeup, we're literally right there in somebody's face, like in a foot. So that was the hardest part with COVID is, we don't have the option to social distance, and our clients really can't wear a mask when we're doing their whole face. So, some people will do their eye makeup and, the client can wear a mask for half of the appointment. But when when COVID hit in March, like it shut us down. Like we couldn't provide any services initially because we didn't know what was going on and how COVID was contracted. So we were shut down here in Indiana from March until May is when services started back up. So we were scared because we didn't know what we were going to do. So, we contacted our state board because here in Indiana, you have to be a licensed esthetician or cosmetologist to provide makeup services. So we reached out to our state board to find out what our protocols were to restart services again. And they had no idea. So we were kind of lost. And state board was telling us to contact our governor. And our governor said, contact state board.
Oh, gosh.
So, so we were like, okay, who knows what we're supposed to do? So it was just going back and forth. And they both told us to then contact the health department. But the health department doesn't regulate our services.
Right.
Our services. So we kind of, in the makeup industry in our state and throughout the US, we kind of did our own research and came up with ideas of what we thought was safe protocol. So when the CDC came out with their initial thoughts and studies on how COVID was transmitted, when they initially thought it was through touch contact with items, we added additional sanitation and disinfection protocols to wiping down each product that we touched and sanitizing and disinfecting with alcohol and adding additional time in between each client for disinfection, like wiping down each individual product that we touched and having individual makeup tools and like pencil sharpeners and eyelash curlers and everything for each client. So it's not just the one or two that we have in our kits and then disinfecting it and then using it again on another client. Like if we had 8 bridesmaids that we were working on, we had 8 pencil sharpeners, 8 lash curlers, 8 spatulas, everything individual. And rather than, just having 8 sets of brushes to use on clients, we had everything individually packaged. So nothing was exposed. Should somebody, cough or sneeze and they have COVID and they don't know it, they weren't contaminating everything. So it was like, everything was separate and sanitized and like packaged away. So the only thing that was out was what we were using on that individual client. And then it was wiped down and then it's literally start fresh with the next client. And each person we were working on, it was just them and ourselves in the room. So instead of having the entire bridal party there in the room watching and oohing and eyeing over people getting makeup done, which was a huge deal with weddings, everybody was secluded with just one client that they're working on. So it just kind of, put a halt to what weddings were as a big celebration and everybody's there together having fun. And it just like It's you and the single client you're working on in one room by yourself.
Yeah, such a different scenario and situation than we're all used to in the wedding and event industry. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head there with what's happening with, just the social interactions that happen with bridal parties. That was kind of all gone. So did you see a big change and then people, I guess like last year telling, of course, your clients, like, this is what we're doing to follow the safety and guideline procedures in our county and state. Did you have people then that primarily wanted to change their date because they couldn't kind of have that same experience that they had envisioned?
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of clients that were reschedules myself. I know one of my fellow artist friends, she had I want to say 30 or 40 reschedules herself. But a lot of mine, the brides totally cut down their guest lists and their bridal party members. Like, she ended up, my very first wedding back, she only had her, 4 of her bridesmaids and her family attend. And they just had the small intimate wedding, and then they completely canceled the reception and had the few people that were in the wedding come over the next day, and they had food trucks at the house and have a brunch. And then they were planning on having the reception this year to have a big celebration. So mine were mostly more small intimate weddings, and then the bigger celebrations they're having this year, or just not even having the bigger celebration at all. They just did more of the micro weddings. But a lot of people had, a lot of my fellow makeup artists in the industry had more of the reschedules. So people kind of were following with the guidelines, and some people were more of, you know what, I'm just going to reschedule. I want my big event. I don't want to have a smaller scale wedding. So it was kind of interesting to see both sides of it and how people were coping with what was going on.
Yeah, definitely give and take depending on, what the couple wants and what their family and friends want, and kind of also the venue. And I mean, there's so many scenarios that come into play when, COVID was a massive, massive factor. And nobody, like you said, nobody really knew what to do. Governments and agencies and licensing boards, nobody really had the answer. And so we were all kind of trying to figure it out together. Do you remember if the makeup industry at all, because you guys are in such close contact, had any legal parameters in place? Did you use waivers? Do you still use waivers? How has that kind of changed from last May, June, July till now?
For the wedding industry and special events, to my knowledge, there wasn't, from what I researched myself. And I myself started implementing waivers specifically for liability and safety. And I which I got from you. I had my own waivers that I was using mostly for health and safety, and I was using, I had my own rescheduling policy. But with COVID, along with the liability waivers, I had my own rescheduling policy, but I started using the COVID rescheduling policies so that if initially people were able to reschedule because of COVID, but then once things started coming along and lifting up and we were able to have weddings again, I used a different COVID rescheduling policy so that if they were able to have their wedding, even though it was a smaller event, or they could have it, but they had to wear masks, and I was able to perform my services legally, that we would do so. And I wouldn't allow reschedules because my services weren't dictated by the size of the wedding or if they had to wear masks, because I myself was wearing a mask because if I had it and didn't know it, because I could have picked it up at a wedding because my clients weren't wearing masks. They weren't able to, that I wanted to protect themselves and any future clients that I was having. I didn't want to get them sick. So because we didn't have set mandates with our services, I wanted to protect my clients with the waiver and be able to proceed, because legally my clients and myself could proceed with services and weddings. So
Right. Was there any kind of like workflow or system too that you implemented at that time where maybe you had a little bit more communication with clients prior to the event date, or you kind of informed them, please be aware that we don't want anyone who has been in contact with someone who has COVID or has any symptoms to be around us, because everyone that is getting makeup does have to obviously be non-mask wearing. And while you're masked up, you can't, it's not like you can control everything that occurs. I was just wondering if you implemented any of that, like prior communication that would just be more like additional services you're providing and guidance you're providing versus like legal documents they're signing.
Yes. When COVID first hit, I reached out to my clients to let them know what was going on and find out if they were still proceeding with their wedding, and let them know my initial policies and find out what they were doing, if they were moving ahead, if they were planning on rescheduling and whatnot. And I let them know what I was planning on doing and what I would like them to do, and what they felt comfortable doing. If they didn't feel comfortable having me in their face just a few inches away, that I understood. And if they wished to move forward, that I would allow them to transfer their payments made to another event date within a year.
Mm-hmm.
But if they wished to move forward, that I was doing my due diligence and helping to prevent the spread of COVID by wearing PPE, following the sanitation and disinfection procedures that I've always done, and increasing steps that we as a makeup community had come together and decided to do, and doing what I could to put them at ease. And I was doing that up until the end of December. And then for this year, what my new policies were and procedures, and letting them know that I was still doing everything in my ability to protect myself and my team of additional artists and my clients, both them and future clients, what we were doing to help protect everybody, and that I was still wearing masks, even though, our state just opened up fully and removed the state mandate for masks. So they're still optional, but even with the mask mandates, a lot of my clients weren't wearing masks. So even though it's not required, and even when it was required, a lot of people weren't wearing them, but I was wearing them the whole time. So
yeah,
and that's the hardest thing, which I understand. They don't want to wear masks during their wedding, and they don't want to have them in pictures, but it's that touchy thing because you're right there in their face.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense that you would still be wearing them. Like, obviously, it's still private businesses can make their own decision on what they're doing with mask mandates, even if the state obviously doesn't mandate it. But it makes sense since you're so close. But I guess, probably now this summer, you're seeing more, bridal parties, just everyone's being maskless, I would say.
Yeah.
And do you have any like communication with your clients about like vaccinations or negative COVID testing or anything along those lines? Have they ever asked you that, or have you asked them that? I'm just curious how, the wedding industry is kind of going about that right now.
I haven't had anybody ask me personally if I have had any testing or if I've been vaccinated, which I have. I'm fully vaccinated. And I don't mind if clients ask me that, because I am full on gung-ho about it, because I am highly immunocompromised myself.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't ask my clients that. I don't know if they would feel comfortable answering it. I don't know if they would be offended if I ask, but I still wear my mask to protect them if they aren't, because as we know, the vaccine doesn't protect against people getting it or spreading it.
Right.
And so either way, if you get it or not, you're still vulnerable, and people around you are still vulnerable. But I do in my waivers, that I still send out, that is a question that I ask is, if, they've been around. It's the same questions we all get asked when we go out to doctor's appointments and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
If you've gotten it, or if you've been around it, or if you've, tested positive or whatnot. But if it's something that my clients feel comfortable talking about, I'll talk to them about it. I won't press too much into it because, that's their personal health information. But for me, it's not something that I am about, where it's like, oh, I'm only going to, take clients that are vaccinated, or if they test negative within whatever. But I mean, I just like with my entire business, I treat everybody as if they are positive, just like if they were to have any other communicable disease. I practice safe standards, so I treat COVID no other way.
That's a great way to put it. I treat it as if everybody's positive around me. That's a really good, suggestion and advice for makeup artists in general. I think especially as things are opening up now and everyone's going to be maskless for the most part. I think lots of makeup artists are still wearing masks. I think that's really good practice, and I would definitely suggest it for liability purposes, as would Erin. But I think it's true that, taking it not for granted that everyone's going to be okay and people haven't been in contact, like it's still a thing. I think people just think it's not. And COVID it's still a pandemic. It's still ongoing throughout the world, and we need to treat everyone as if they were in contact with someone or they did have it. And so we're protecting ourselves and our contractors and everything like that. Okay, so let's move on from COVID because I think everyone could talk about it forever, but I think that's really just smart practices moving forward through the end of 2021 and into 2022. Let's talk about like photography a little bit, because I'm kind of interested from your standpoint, like how do you work with professional photographers in terms of getting, really beautiful imagery from them to showcase your work and you actually obviously performing your services? And then do you take photos at all, like on your phone? Like I know makeup artists do a lot of before and afters. And how do you go about ensuring that you have like model releases with your clients for those type of things?
With working with photographers, I have a handful in my area that I work often with, and they are extremely kind in sending me photos without me having to ask. As hopefully everybody knows, since the photographers own the copyright to the images, we can't use them without their permission.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously without the client's permission as well. But to ensure that I hopefully receive images that are website worthy and worthy of sharing, because I'm not a photographer by any means, what I do is I reach out to the photographers and have an open form of communication with them. I reach out to them before the wedding day. I email them, or if I see them beforehand at another wedding, I just have a quick introduction to them and let them know who I am and that I'm working a wedding with them, so-and-so bride, and let them know like the makeup schedule that I have created with our client, and see if there's anything that needs adjusted to work with their photography times, because the photographer usually shows up like the last hour or two to take pictures of us getting ready and do those detailed shots. And if that works with their timeline as well, and if there's anything that needs changed. And then I also have an image release clause in my contract with the bride to see if she gives me permission to use the images from the photographer. And then and I also have that in a release that I send to all the bridal party that I'm working on, because if I don't have a release from them, then I can't use their images either.
Mm-hmm.
But then after the wedding, I'll reach back out to the photographer and thank them for working with them. And because, we have to work hand in hand, because I'll have a photographer over my shoulder And I don't, try not to bump them. And then they're working with me, trying to not block my light or get in my way. But I thank them for working with me and tell them that it was great meeting them, and ask if it's possible to receive any images that they've taken. And sometimes I'll hear back and they say, sure, they'll send me the images, or they'll let me know that I can get them from the bride, whichever way works best for them. Sometimes I don't even hear back, which, is unfortunate, but, I'm not entitled to images. I'm only entitled to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And if that doesn't happen, it's whatever. But what I also do is I do take pictures of my work on the wedding day. I try and get it all the time, but sometimes, we're working fast on the day of, and I don't always get pictures, but I try and get some pictures that I can put at least on social media. I don't put pictures that I take on my website because they're not, in my opinion, they're not site worthy. The quality isn't there. I prefer professional images for my website, but I will take the ones that I took with my phone and put them on my Instagram and my business page on Facebook. But I'm not a fan of before and afters because I don't want to compare what they looked like beforehand versus what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I know it works for some of my friends, but for me personally, I just want it to be about them after. There have been some negative experiences that I've seen with other artists on before and afters. So,
oh, that's so interesting. I didn't ever even think about that, but now that you're saying it, I'm like, yeah, you are comparing what they look like before and after. Like, you need to have this mask of makeup and, the whole filter game that's happening right now on Instagram, and just how people are like, how can we not love ourselves in our natural beauty? That's very interesting, Erin. I'm glad you brought that up for people, because I think that is kind of a business moral and ethics situation that you have to face as a makeup artist, especially for before and afters, because I'm so used to seeing them. I think I asked that question without even thinking about it. And now I'm going to take a second each time, it's just so true. It's like, I don't know if it was a mistake on my end, but it was a learning lesson on my end.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, it works. There are some markets where the before and afters work, because a lot of clients, they're like, I want to see, how people look after the fact before I book that artist.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see people where, because social media is so open and out there, and it invites people to make comments.
Mm-hmm.
Some people leave rude comments on, she beforehand, she looked so and so, and now look at how gorgeous she looks. So it kind of leaves people open to leave their opinions where certain opinions be left.
Or
and I don't
like that doesn't even look like the same person.
Right.
Like that would be a very negative connotation to something that you're trying to just showcase your work on.
Exactly. And me personally, I don't feel like I should have to monitor my comments on social media when I've got so much other stuff to do. And I don't want my client, if my client is tagged, or if my client just happens to come across it, or a future client, I don't want any possible negative comments to be in my client or future client's mind where, oh, is she going to do that? And in 15 years, I've only had maybe 2 clients ask if I take before and after pictures. And I say, I only take after pictures. And they've been relieved. And they're like, oh, good. I was hoping that you didn't take after or before pictures, or I'm glad that you don't, because I didn't want them. I've never had a single client ask me to take a before picture.
Right. So wow. Okay. We just dug into so much. I'm sure we could go down this rabbit hole of like before and afters, and like the feelings about it and ethics about it and all of these things. But that's actually it's a really good takeaway from this episode. If anything, you guys, if you're a makeup artist, to really just think about like what's best for your clients in that situation. Because Erin made a great point. Like, what if they're tagged in it and then they come across it later on, and you do have someone that said something negatively, and then they think badly of themselves because they don't have Erin as their makeup artist every single day helping them look that way. So super, super interesting. Erin, let's talk about kind of some things that you have to get covered legally as a makeup artist. Obviously, licensure is a big one, depending on your state. Oftentimes, I think states are moving more towards you have to be a certified cosmetologist in order to do makeup artistry, but there's a few states out there who still don't have that requirement. Is that correct?
Yes, right now, there's about 35 to 40 states that require licensure in order to do makeup. So and especially I think with COVID, more states are starting to add that requirement.
Yeah, I think they're going to follow suit. So, I mean, first thing too is just making sure you disclose that and notify your clients that you do have the licensure and, permitting to perform the services that you're performing. That would definitely be in your contract. And then what else do people, would you suggest makeup artists be aware of? I mean, you've been in this for 15 years. You kind of have probably heard stories, you've probably experienced certain things like the makeup you use, any like warranties regarding the makeup, premium brushes or allergic reactions, things like that. How do you make sure that you're covering yourself as a makeup artist in case one of those things were to happen at the event that you're servicing?
As far as with covering with the makeup and the brushes, I make sure that I use quality makeup and tools that make sure I get the job done. Everything is an investment in this because this is my livelihood. So I make sure that, the majority of my information I have on my FAQ page on my website. So if people want to know what products I use, I have those listed on there. And it's not just, random things that I can run to the drugstore and grab. There are a few things that I go through quickly that, I'm not going to spend a fortune on, like mascara. That's something that, you don't need to spend $30 on a tube of mascara when I literally go through a mascara tube per wedding.
Right.
So, and people are getting false lashes anyways. So it's just something I need quick that I can pop on and blends into the false lashes. But, I'm using, high quality makeup that photographs in any situation, whether they're indoors or outdoors, flash photography friendly. As you know, as a photographer, you need things that are created in makeup factories that have health inspections and safety inspections, and not things that are just thrown together with cheap materials that can cause, reactions or injuries, that, if it's not quality products or tools that, can injure somebody or cause reactions and that type of thing.
Right. Do you have in your contract, do you have, kind of an allergy disclosure clause, or just putting that onus on the client? And then of course, anyone else that you're servicing as well to disclose those to you prior to you providing services?
I do. I have an allergy and sensitivity waiver in the contract for the bride. And then I do send that out, additional ones individually to the bride to send to all of the attendants that I'm working on so that they can fill out their own waiver. It requires them to list any sensitivities, allergies, skin conditions as well ahead of time. So I know all of those issues before I even touch their face. And then what I also do is I have, now not many people do this, so it not only covers me, but I'm also very OCD with everything. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but this part particularly protects me and my client. But I have a PDF form that I keep on my phone that lists all the ingredients of everything in my kit. So when they fill out the form and they list, if they're sensitive or allergic to anything, I can pull that up, type it into my form, and it will highlight every product that contains that ingredient.
Oh, that's super smart.
So whether I do it ahead of time or if they tell me last minute, oh, I forgot that I'm allergic or sensitive to this item, I can type it in right there and it'll pull up the product, and I know not to use that on them.
Oh, so smart. Yeah, it's like double covering yourself. You already have them sign it, but then you're, protecting yourself. That's also a really good tip for makeup artists. What other like little tiny tips of business wisdom would you give makeup artists that you've kind of learned over the years that you just wish you would have known in the first year or two?
Invest in your business. And, everything, it's expensive to do it, but I would rather spend the money to get it at the start rather than making the mistake and trying to fix it.
What little things like would you invest in?
Contracts, getting the insurance, because if you don't have your contract from the start and a client cancels on you and you're out, a $600, $700, $800, $1,000 wedding, and you didn't get paid because you didn't have a contract to enforce, a retainer at the beginning and final payment at the end, or they dropped services halfway through because somebody had a falling out and they're no longer friends and they don't have that extra bridesmaid or two in their wedding. So now those 8 services that you had booked now are down to 5, or, the bride decided that she wanted to do her own makeup and save money because they're going to buy a house, and now you don't have a wedding that you had planned and was going to use that money for a vacation, So, at the start of mine, I had 2 large weddings that canceled on me right before the holidays, and I didn't have a contract in place. So not only was I out 2 weddings, but the additional artist that I had hired to help me was also out those weddings. So, no contract in place, and I had nothing to fall back on to make sure that I was paid.
So smart. I mean, just those type of stories like alert people to the fact, like, I absolutely need it and I need it now. And I'm going to invest now, a few $100s, but that's going to serve me well for years and years to come. And I can make it back with basically like one event. Insurance, you mentioned that. Do most makeup artists carry insurance for their business?
They don't. And that is surprising to me to know that, that either they don't know that they need insurance, or they just don't. I don't know if it's that they don't care, or they're just so blasé about it that they're like, oh, well, nothing's going to happen. Like, I can't hurt anybody doing makeup. But they don't realize, hey, you've got eyeliners up in people's eye. You're using sharp objects, in people's faces. And if somebody, jumps because they're not used to you applying mascara to them and they twitch, you could accidentally poke somebody with a mascara wand. And now you damage their eye.
So many good, like, just scenarios that people like forget to think about. So insurance is, I would agree with you. I think, mainly HMUA people in general don't. I just don't think they need it, and it's not really on the forefront of their mind when they're starting their business. Like, I need to get business insurance. But I think just a general liability policy for a makeup artist is a really good idea.
Right. And kit insurance too.
Yeah, kit insurance too. Yeah, equipment, gear. Yeah, you have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff.
Oh, yeah. And they don't realize that, that, like, I've heard so many people that they leave their kit in their, like for traveling makeup artists, that they leave their kit in their car because they got home late and they were too tired to bring it in the house or even, into their garage. And the next morning they go and their car's been broken into.
Yeah, and your personal auto insurance, you guys won't cover that for most purposes. If it's a business related expense that or a business loss, essentially, you need to have business insurance for that. And so, Erin, I'm glad you brought up kit insurance, which would be like kind of equipment, gear insurance. It would be a rider to your additional general liability insurance policy.
Yeah, and we carry so much stuff with us that, in addition to our makeup, we've got, professional lighting, we have our chair, we've got a table,
right.
We've got so much stuff. And there's so many scenarios where, things can happen. And it's unfortunate that, if you're not insured, that, there's many thousands of dollars worth of product and equipment is gone. And, it takes a long time for that stuff to accumulate. And, if you've got another job that's lined up and you don't have that, it's going to take you a long time to get it back.
So true. I mean, that's probably the best advice anyone could take from this. Like I said, there's so many great nuggets that Erin's dropped, you guys. Erin, any other little one last suggestion and number one thing you would tell all makeup artists just starting out, or people who are interested in hearing from a seasoned professional like yourself?
I would say that while our jobs involve a lot of makeup, the majority of it is the business back end of it. So don't think that just because you love to do makeup and you're good at doing makeup on other people, this industry is only 20% makeup. The other 80% is all business. Knowing how to communicate with your clients, knowing how to do the paperwork, the admin stuff with communicating with your clients, whether it's over the phone or through email, knowing how to answer their questions, knowing what to do if a client needs to reschedule or has to cancel or just has general questions. You need to know how to be a business owner and communicate and know how to enforce your policies with them and just run a business, because that's what this is in the end. It's not just playing in makeup and making people pretty and, feel self-confident. You have to know how to communicate and handle business because, in the end, that's what it is. You can't just wake up and go put on makeup and go home. It's, you have to know how to support yourself and run a business and make it succeed.
That's phenomenal advice. I actually just listened to a podcast this morning that said something very similarly to what you just said. So you guys, I mean, everyone's preaching this to the choir. It was about a photographer who said, was talking about she didn't have any back-end business education. She went to photography school, but she only learned photography. And probably similarly to cosmetologists, like you go to the school to learn your craft. You don't go to necessarily run a super successful, back-end business, which is like what you said, 80% of the job. So I think that's probably why there's so many people now coming to the forefront of the education space online, really helping people run more successful businesses. And if you're looking for that type of education, like I would, suggest you seek it out, as would Erin, because if you do that at the beginning, you're setting yourself up for success versus setting yourself up for failures and, bad situations that could come your way that you have to learn from versus getting really sound advice from a makeup, artist educator that can really help you on the back end side of things. So Erin, thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, not a problem.
All right. So we're nearing the end of our episode. If you all listen to the TLP podcast often, I love rapid fire questions because I think they're fun and kind of like, it like chills out the mood because this is oftentimes a legal podcast. So Erin, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So what's your favorite alcoholic drink?
Oh gosh, I don't drink a lot, but I'm a simple girl. I do vodka cranberry.
Ooh, love it. What is your favorite munchy food? Like if you were to go grab something?
If it's late at night, which is when I usually snack, it's either popcorn in bed or a huge bowl of fruit in bed.
Ooh, healthy and delicious all at the same time. What is your favorite TV show right now?
My favorite TV show is I am loving on Tuesday nights. Actually, they're both on Tuesday nights. This Is Us and New Amsterdam, and they're back to back.
Oh, I love This Is Us, but I've never watched New Amsterdam. I'll go check it out. What is like your favorite music genre that you listen to?
I listen to anything besides country or rap.
Those that's really funny. I live in Montana, so everybody's obsessed with country.
Nothing offensive to you, but
no, I get it. Those two are probably people's most things they dislike the most genre wise.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to this summer?
The warmth. I'm, here in Indiana, we actually had snow. We got like 5 inches of snow just, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. It always snows in end of April and sometimes in May. So I'm excited for the warm weather.
Awesome. All right. Well, Erin, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was a joy to have you. Where can everyone go find you?
Well, thank you for the invitation. You can find me on my website at erinnay.com or on Instagram at erin.nay.
Perfect. And you guys know that we will link those up in the show notes and make sure Erin is linked everywhere that we publish this podcast episode. And definitely go check her out. She is a wealth of information if you are a makeup artist, and I'm sure she would love to talk to you. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.